I'm using Adobe Photoshop CC, and I use just a simple point and shoot camera. So this is just my little system that I created for sharing my work. So I'm going to take this image and get it into my image editing template. So I'm going to go to Select All and hit Control C or Command C for Mac and take it into my template and hit Control V or Command V for Mac. And you can see that it's already adjusted my image for me because I pasted the image behind my adjustment layers. You can create your own adjustment layers by going to Window and selecting Adjustments. And this is going to bring up your adjustments panel. For my image here, and your settings will be different based on the photo that you're editing and the lighting conditions that you take your image in, take your shots in. I used brightness and contrast, the levels, curves, and I used the color balance only to adjust some colors that were off in this image for my blog post for this blog series. I'm going to go into the adjustment layers here in my layers panel and show you some of the edits that I made. This is a brightness and contrast, and you can see that I upped the brightness up to 19, and you can just select the slider and adjust the levels of your image, the brightness and contrast levels in your image. And I think 10 is really nice as well, but for what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to keep it up to 19. I think this is going to work nice, but we'll see what it looks like when we start creating the image for the mockup, because we're going to be getting rid of all the colors anyway. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm not really going to go into the color balance because we're really not going to need that. Well, I'll show you real quick. I made some adjustments here in the highlights and small adjustment in the shadows. So not really too much adjustment to that, but you're not going to really need to do that for the mock-up section. So here's the levels adjustment, and this is a quick histogram preview of the blacks, midtones, and whites in the image. And you can see that there's a lot more white in the image and there's virtually no black. I mean, my background's white, so there would be a lot more white in the photograph. So I just played around with these settings a little bit to adjust it to where it's at now. So I'm going to close that out. I'm going to go into the curves adjustment and show you what I did here. When you first open the curves adjustment, you're going to have a straight line with no selection points. So what I do is I just select 3 selection points along the line, and then you can move these points up and down to make adjustments to your image. And I had just moved these up just ever so slightly to make a few minor little adjustments into that. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to just go to my history panel and change that back. Now that we went over adjustments, I'm going to show you a small little visual hack that works for me when I'm adjusting my images for Instagram or making these mock-ups. This just is a little visual trick that helps me. You'll notice these 2 little square swatches here in my image, and I have them both on separate layers. This is the white and this is the gray, and I will give you the hex codes in the blog post, but so you can create these yourself. And quickly how I created them, I just selected the rectangular tool and dragged and created the selection, and then just went to edit, fill, and we'll just say I want to fill it with white and hit OK. And I just go to select, deselect, and you can see we have another one of those squares. And you would have it on your own layer, but it just did it on this layer, so because I'm showing you real quick, but I'm just gonna go back in my history panel and get rid of that. But these are my two swatches that when I do adjusting, it really helps me visually see the color range that my image is in. Now you can use tools that are built into Photoshop that can show you where your color ranges are, like the histogram and things like that. But you know, while I'm editing, it's just easier for me to have these little squares. So it helps with consistency, and it's just a little thing that I use. I do want to mention that before you save out any of your images, if you use the squares, you're definitely going to want to make sure you turn those layers off before you save your images out. You don't want to have those squares in your final images. And another thing that I have in this template is a text layer that has my Instagram Instagram information in it. And this way, when I'm creating posts or whatever I need to use, posts for my website or whatever, I have this text layer that I can turn on and off and easily add my information into the image already for me. And if you want to follow along with this blog post series, just go to deniseann.com and follow along.